All right, welcome everybody. It is February
Third.
3rd. And this is a joint meeting of the House and the Senate to hear the FY27 budget request from the Agency of Digital Services. So I'm Representative Kathleen James from Manchester. I'm Chair of House Energy and Digital Infrastructure.
Wendy Harrison, Senator from the Wyndham District, Chair of Institutions.
And Rob Plunkett, Senator from Bennington District.
Senator Russ Ingles, Senator from the Essex District.
Senator John Benson from the Orange District.
Representative Bram Kleppner, Chicken 13 Burlington.
Senator Joe Major from Windsor.
Representative Michael Southwood, Caledonia. Representative Chris Martin, Wyndham.
Representative Derek Torrey, Washington.
Representative Christopher Halloran, Rutland 4.
Representative Richard Daley, Lamoille 2.
Representative Sibilia, Wyndham 2.
Senator Scott Campbell from St. Johnsbury, Vice Chair of House Energy and Digital Infrastructure.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for being here. We're on a faster timeline than the Senate, but we still thought it'd be helpful to have a joint meeting. On the House side, we're in the process of hearing from the agencies that fall within our committee's jurisdiction to learn a little bit more about their FY27 budget in preparation for a recommendation letter that we need to deliver to House Approve soon. So that's why this is time sensitive for us, and we're really glad you guys can join us so that we can all hear the same info at the same time and
Exactly.
ask questions at the same time. So I don't know. Chair,
I agree. It's very helpful to us, even though we're not making those decisions right now. It's great for us to both hear the same information, easier on you, and we'll understand better how you make the decisions that you make.
Great. All right. Over to you.
So for the record, Denise Riley Hughes, I am Secretary for the Agency of Digital Services, State Chief Information Officer as well.
And I am Kate Slocum. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Agency of Digital Services.
And we do appreciate that you are able to come together as joint committees, because I know that we've spent a lot of time educating on the process, what we're trying to do with changes, going through some of the work last session on improvements to the work that we're doing at dashboarding. And so for this request, I think that we've made a lot of headway with both committees around overview. Now this will be an opportunity to dig into the details. So some of the slides in our deck are a repeat. And so I think we're going to go to slide 8, which is specific to the asks. So you see the breakdown of the asks. And then if committee chairs and vice chairs have any other preference to start at a different place, we're open to that, but this is what we recommend.
Give me just 1 second. I want to pull up your testimony and just quickly skim through the slides that we are not looking at. 1 sec. So this is. Let's see. All right. And I know we met just a couple weeks ago. So the slides that we're skipping just give an overview of the who. Yeah, okay.
It's the presentations that we've had done for the joint committee and then separately both committees as well. So they're not new.
Okay. And I remember where we left it last time. We had just started talking about your budget and we kind of ran out of time. So we are picking up there, I guess. Okay.
So the slide that we're showing here shows the breakdown of our 27 budget ask. The governor recommended in totality is $96.5 million. And then we have that broken into 2 different sections of our budget. And those represent the 2 appropriations that you would see in our budget for 27. That is a new approach for the Agency of Digital Services. In the past, it was 1 appropriation. This is being proposed to be split between what we're referring to as core enterprise services and then demand-driven services. So core enterprise services is a total of $49.2 million, and that's broken out across a couple of internal service funds, one being the Communication and Information Technology Fund, and the other being the Vision Fund, and that's that Vision Fund appropriation. The Vision Fund portion is specific to the team that we have that maintains the current ERP systems that we have, Vision, ETHR, and now Adaptive. The other funds that you see in here, there's an amount for general fund, an amount for the BCGI fund, and for the municipal and regional planning commission fund. The BCGI fund and the MRP fund support our GIS teams in part, as well as some of the general fund. But a large portion of the general fund appropriation is specific to core enterprise services. So last session, we talked about the creation of core enterprise services. And there was $15 million that was set aside in the general fund when it all came to me at the end of the session to stand up this new offering, basically. And that's foundational services for all of IT needs across the government. So things like cybersecurity fall into this, network access falls into this, some foundational needs specific to data storage fall into this, as well as we have a breakdown of categories. There's 13 categories in total, as well as AI services, domain services, security testing, cybersecurity. So that's funded by general fund as well as the CIT fund. Stop there for a moment if there's any questions.
So the specific services are on slide 10, is that right? For the, what is in the,
Slide 10 is the breakdown of foreign services, so we can get to that.
Quickly run through a couple of those acronyms for me, BCGI and SLA
Sure. So under
and
the
MRP.
CES, you'll see that there is the BCGI fund and the MRP fund. BCGI is Vermont Center for Geographic Information, correct? It's our GIS team, the MAPS.
Yeah.
The MAPS. And the MRP fund is the Municipal and Regional Planning Commission fund. That also supports the GIS team, the BCGI team. It's the MAPS work. That funding source comes from the property transfer tax annually. So it's a portion of property transfer tax that gets put into that fund to support this work. If you look into the demand side, SLA, timesheet, bespoke, these are services that agencies are requesting specific from ADS that meet their needs and their mission and specific goals of their agencies or departments. So under the SLA fund, we're looking at enterprise licensing for enterprise tools, also private cloud consumption. They are, like I said, enterprise offerings that each agency.
What does SLA stand for?
It stands for service level agreement.
Thank you.
It's a legacy term that has been brought over when ADS was created, and we just kept it. And it has taken on its own identity as SLA just means it's the bill that I get after the year is over for anything that I used, and they get it once a year.
can I just add to that? Because my understanding of that was that the bill is related to the quantity of the services. So that's
It's
an
an
important, yeah, so it's like a utility.
Right.
That's the idea of it. So I think that's important to just,
Yes, and one of the,
you're gonna have to keep telling us these.
that's
Thanks.
perfect,
We're
yeah.
happy to.
And one of the reasons why we're looking, we started really looking at SLA specifically is because the growth of the consumption wasn't matching what the budget projections could be. There's no way to project what somebody would consume necessarily. And we were charging them in arrears. So they would, let's say, in FY 26, we wouldn't know until the end of the fiscal year after we did a reconciliation to do a snapshot and say, this is how much you used in the last year, but they've already submitted their FY 27 budgets to pay that bill. And so it was a backwards model that we were looking to draw out the cost of standard services across the board, which is why core enterprise services is created, and so we'll call that CES. But those are the foundational services that no matter who you are, no matter what department or agency or user you are in state government, everybody's getting that service, and now we can measure it at an enterprise level. So that's drawing down the budget and the amount for SLA. And so we're starting to see less and less of the I need more, or I'm gonna consume more. And we can start having greater visibility on what is that more? And who's consuming it, who's using it, who's needing it. But it's exclusive to our standard platforms that are part of our core services.
So did I hear you say that folks are using less of it because they know the cost of it?
This, I would say.
Maybe I extrapolated, but it sounded as if you said that,
Our,
but because wouldn't the goal be that if departments know the cost, that they'll only use what they need?
That's the goal.
And maybe
So
they
that's
do
why
need
we
what they.
separate out foundational services so that we can
Great.
look at, these are the things that no matter what, they're non-negotiables, right? You can't not pay for security, you can't not pay for network access, but if you need something more than what we would consider to be baseline, you'll see that show up in SLA.
So has it happened yet that departments know what things cost? Has that happened in the past or is that in the future?
Both.
Okay, so you should have seen some sort of change in what they want or what they order you.
I think we're gonna continue seeing that evolution over time. But now it gives us an opportunity when they say, wait a second, we just paid for core enterprise services. Why am I also getting the SLA? And now we can start talking about your overall consumption, where you're consuming, why that is. And we weren't able to extract the foundational before. And now that we can do that, we can look just solely at their own portions.
Okay, so hopefully we'll see, you'll tell us in the future when you
Yes.
see.
the important part is what Secretary Riley Hughes was saying, that in the past, it wasn't evidently clear to our customers what were, the must-haves in the SLA numbers versus the unique demand and need of each customer. So now this presents something that's really saying, this is what AOT needs out of these offerings that's unique to them.
Right, no, and the concept is great. I'm just curious about when we're gonna see changes and when to expect changes. But then I have a different question and then.
In the year of transition, I think it's hard to really hone in on where the changes are because last year's budget didn't look like this. My expectation would be next year, you now have trend evidence to be able to look at year over year and do it across 8 different areas as opposed to 4.
Okay, good. So the MRP fund, you said that the revenue is by statute. So I would just like to see an evaluation of what is required to do the services.
This is the one division within ADS that is public facing. So BCGI works really closely with regional planning commissions and they do a lot of work with them. They also work with other entities that are part of any of the work that regional planning commissions would be doing. So they work with towns, the town clerks. I think that they're all of the grand lists data and all of the property and property transfer data. So that's what that goes to, is allowing that operation to continue and not impacting general fund or not impacting
Yeah.
internal service costs.
And the services are terrific, especially the GIS folks. But my question is, if the budget is just based on what the statute says to put in the budget, it's probably not exactly the right amount. So I would
That's
just
correct.
like to know the right amount at some point.
So that's when, going back to when the agency was established, BCGI came into our agency from the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, you might recall this. And they came to us funding short. So since then, we have always had to supplement their work through the CIT, through the Communication and Information Technology, under what was formerly known as the allocation. So correct, that $1 million does not satisfy the
Okay.
needs of that unit within our agency. And we can provide follow-up information as to what that real true cost is.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But if it's okay, you hit on exactly why we're moving to this model. Because going to that list of, I thought it was 14 categories, but maybe it is 13, it is 13. That, under the data and governance and under, where's the other one? I think it's under the data and governance. And, under the core essentials 3, there are services that BCGI is doing under both of those categories that have to be outlined as services. And so that's what's going to allow us to put a total cost to it. And although our recovery may be across different funds, the service itself and who they're working with has to be defined with measures.
Good. Thank you.
Rep. Bailey?
The SLA fund, is that the one that was giving you problems last year
The credit card, yes.
with the deficit that we?
That is one of, yes, that was one of the funds of deficit, so we drew that total number down, I think last year it was close to $30 million. Timesheet billing is the other one.
And now that's under control for
For the SLA portion, yes, for the timesheet billing portion, that's what we're gonna work on, through 27, so you'll see that represented differently in 28. So where there needs to be a rate versus, creating some tighter controls around field services. And that's what the timesheet fund is for, is it to cover the cost of the resources that are part of the, I hate to say embedded teams, but the specific agency or department-based field teams, supporting work for them. And so this year was the first time that we drew, a requirement of consistency because some of those were recovered under SLA, some were recovered under timesheet. Now everybody is recoverable under timesheet. What we would like to see, or I would like to see, is a shift away from timesheet and into service-based costs for agencies and utilize timesheet exclusively for projects. Because if you're 100% committed and dedicated to one department or one agency, but you are recovering under a timesheet model, you can never 100% recover the cost of that resource. And it is because I can't charge agencies for vacation time, or administrative time, or training time, or skills development time. I can only charge them for work that they're doing on systems that are field-based systems. And that makes it really, really difficult to manage. It's not a model that matches the way that the work is actually being delivered. Services is a lot more aligned to that.
So as we go through the slides, I want to make sure that we as a team come away with the information we need to be able to write our recommendation memo. So I don't want to interrupt you. I know we want to move through the slides, but some of the big picture things that we're going to need to understand are what, if any, substantial changes are we seeing in your budget from last year to this year? So what is substantially different in the numbers or the way they're being presented or our ability to see them? What, if any, changes to the budget might impact the way that you're delivering services or the way that you're delivering information? So our task as a team isn't really so much to look into, every dollar and cent as to try to get a big picture sense of this is what our budget looked like last year. This is what our budget looks like this year. This is how it might impact the services that we're giving. This is how it might impact how we work with other agencies. This is how it might impact the legislature's ability to see your spending and provide oversight. So I just want to make sure that we're operating at a translatable level. So we did a lot of work last year as a committee, and we worked with these guys in the Senate to make sure that we were moving ADS's reporting in a direction that was useful and transparent. So we asked for changes to your annual report, We asked for changes to the EPMO dashboard so that, you know, the layperson can hop in and say, here are these projects that, you know, EPMO is tracking, here's where all the data is. And so I feel like we're moving in a direction that allows IT spending to be tracked and visible at a central level. So as we go through these slides, I just am going to ask you guys to try to translate into lay language. Here's what we did last year. Here's what we're doing this year. This is what's different. What do you think? So one slide I was looking at was number 7. I know we dove right in at 8, but that seems to track, you know, your different budget categories over time. And maybe that slide gets us to some of the questions I'm talking about. Or maybe you want to keep moving forward. But anyway, I just want to make sure we don't adjourn today until we've had that conversation.
It's a lot to unpack, and that's why we are creating different visuals, because it historical representation has been transaction based. The yellow in this slide for FY 26 was $15 million appropriation to minimize or reduce the double cost to agencies as we transition from a year in arrears billing model to an in fiscal year billing model.
Yep.
And so you'll see that represented as yellow in 26, and you'll start seeing the demand draw down in 27. The reason why we share it in different visuals is that there are 3 different categories, three different categories to demand. And so this is representing them all as a whole, so high level picture. And the light blue in 27 is the very first time you are being asked for approval for general fund to ADS. And we represent that general fund specifically in core enterprise services. Allocation, and I've been very vocal about this year over year since I've been here, the allocation number before we created core enterprise services was flat. It was anywhere from 11 to $13 million since we were created an agency, going on 9 years. We're almost a decade as an agency. And that doesn't actually pay for foundational services. What it does is minimizes the chargeback costs for everything that everybody is consuming and forces a transaction model. So you'll see core enterprise services now is being established as a holistic number that you should start seeing controlled based increase year over year for, because that is the foundational services. The demand piece is still one that we have to start. That's where some of the reporting comes in that you're talking about, is in the demand space. We expect that people are going to need more than others, size, capacity, volume, demand, whatever they may have around spinning up new servers, storing excess amounts of data. But what this doesn't represent is the IT mod fund projects. That doesn't come into our budget because it's appropriated separately. So that's a whole other separate piece that won't come up in our conversations when it comes to budget. Do you want to speak to other details specifically?
So I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. If I'm looking at this correctly, it looks to me like all 3 of your budget categories, your overall budget's less, demand is a lot less, and then core enterprise is new.
Right.
So I just want to make sure we understand why your overall budget is down so much and demand is down so much.
So one of the other areas that demand includes historically was also project-based cost. And so ADS would receive spending authority, but we would include that in our bespoke recovery model, so that, as you had said, it's represented in a single location. As recommended by finance management, they have been working with us on a new approach that would keep that funding represented in the agency's business offices. So you'll see that in the agency budgets, but it won't be reflected in the EBSs. So there's some internal processes that would have to be planned for, that I know Commissioner Gresham would be happy to come in and speak to this.
Can we, I want to ask a few more questions about that, if that's okay, because it's a big shift, it seems to me. If, as I'm understanding it, expenditures that we previously would have seen in your budget, so for lack of a better word, all in one place, are now going to be appearing in different agency budgets. So when we go as legislators to look at IT spend, how are we going to find that? How are you going to deliver that reporting information to us? Like how is that going to work? Because it feels counterintuitive to me to the direction we've been trying to go in. So what will you have to do, I guess, when we ask you for that info, and will it be on the dashboard?
So we are still working with finance and management on what that would look like for next fiscal year. There has to be some changes to processes within not just our office, but across the executive branch. And the details of that are not really ironed out at this point.
Rep. Sibilia and then Mara.
So I don't know if this is a question for you or for Commissioner Gresham, but what is the problem that we are trying to solve by doing this? What's your understanding of the problem that we are trying to solve in doing this?
I think that's a great question for Commissioner Gresham.
And then I have another question on slide 8, if I might, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
And just wanting to make sure that I understand on slide 8. To that. Let me call that up. Who's got that? Slide 8. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got this broken down into 2 pieces, and I'm not sure that I'm exactly following. So core enterprise services and demand. So core enterprise services are the foundation, and demand are like project based. Is that what it is?
It can be, yes. So that would be what's represented in bespoke would be project-based costs.
Okay.
SLA is the biggie size it.
Yeah.
And timesheet would be the resources.
Okay, so those are not across every agency, those are individual.
It's not distributed evenly, no, it's based on usage and resource assignments.
So it really depends on what the agency is consuming. It could be project-based in all 3 of those buckets, depending on, are they bringing in professional services for a project? Are they utilizing AES staff for that project? And are they looking for enterprise application licensing for that project?
Mhm.
If it's yes to all 3, you will see project spending in SLA, in timesheet, and in bespoke.
And so my question is around, so this is your funding request from these different funds, or for these different funds. Is it from or for these different funds?
It's appropriated to these funds.
Yeah. Spending authority is put towards these funds.
Okay. And then who is making the spending, the day-to-day spending decisions? Is it the same entity in the CES and the demand?
Owns everything that comes through our business office. So ADS business office, there is considered to be a wall between each of the business offices where we can only see what's happening in our own business office. And this is what's flowing directly through Kate's office and Kate's team when contracts that we sign at ADS, contracts that are under our responsibility and ownership.
I would just add to that, that under core enterprise services, it is ultimately the CIO's decision as to how those expenditures are incurred. When we look to the demand side, it is a bit, depending on the service being requested from ADS, it is a bit of a collaboration between the agency and ADS because it really is reactionary to what those agencies are looking for, what are they looking to build, how have we worked out the plan to build that out. So we work really collaboratively with those agencies to provide those services.
And then the pieces that we're no longer seeing that are in the individual budgets, those decisions are being made by spending decisions on those line items, those IT line items are being made by that individual.
Now, the decision to actually pay, the vendor was brought in.
Mhm.
Yet the thinking is that ADS will still hold that engagement, hold that contract with the professional service. But the agencies and departments will pay for those services once they're rendered. So invoicing will go directly to the agency or department that's where the project ultimately resides. So where the decision comes in to pay that, it's believed that it would be a recommendation from ADS to that department to pay the vendor. But the ultimate decision to pay would be based off of that department or agency.
So is that a new process that will have to be undertaken? And do you know what problem that is trying to solve? Or is that the same question that I asked you before?
So ADS will hold the contract and make a recommendation like, yeah, pay. But it'll be up to the agency to decide whether to go ahead and do that. So there could be, it sounds to me like there could be some confusion or, cross wires between ADS and agencies on how we pay for kind of assess performance maybe and decide whether it's time to pay.
That's something that we are actively working with finance management on. They do have access to all of that information and data. They're able to see holistically at all of the various business offices. And I think where you would find like an IT mod fund that's coming from state funds where there's other projects that intake federal dollars. And so I don't know what finance management can see on the back end around those federal dollars paying an internal service fund and then the internal service fund paying the vendor. But there's some details that need to be worked out. And we've spent 2 years on moving to this model. We worked very closely with finance management over the summer and into the fall to get this aligned and outlined properly to meet all of the agency's needs. And then when it comes to kind of our operations and how we depend heavily on the funds and the spending authority, it's just going to require that we change some internal processes in order to make sure that we have all of the right information, but it also likely will mean that we've got some dependencies on finance management to provide content and data to us.
So, Madam Chair, may I ask?
Yeah.
So I have, is this likely to increase efficiency and or expediency with the agencies and departments that ADS is working with?
Efficiency and expedience in which area? It's going to reduce a couple of internal steps that happen today.
Oh,
But as far as the governance and oversight, we need to make sure that everybody's doing things the same.
Yes.
Not maybe under the authority of finance and management, because we don't have the authority to issue spending authority or authorization under ADS. So they are taking on a lot of extra work in finance and management. That is why we're being really methodical about how this can happen.
To belabor the point, but I have concerns about this. Our ability to do our job. Can you say a little bit, so there's chunks that aren't gonna be in the IT mod fund. How would this affect the reporting that we spent so much time setting up last session?
Sorry, not the IT mod fund, not talking about that.
Okay.
That's exclusive.
I just
Okay.
would like to,
Yeah, all right, so,
so the communication and information technology fund or the internal service fund. There's going to have to be clear direction around what how agencies categorize that spend, and then how we can uniformly report that back. And we would look to finance and management to provide that level of reporting. Because we, even if agencies consistently track the spend, we at ADS do not have the ability currently to see that activity. We can only see through our ledger. So we would need finance and management to provide that level of data.
so then, can you talk a little bit about how this would affect your ability to rationalize IT spending across state government in terms of cost savings, cost avoidance, management of IT, the kinds of things that ADS was set up to do?
I don't have an answer.
Uh,
All right, well, I'll ask more specific questions. I guess I'm a little puzzled, first of all, why the IT modernization fund doesn't show up. It seems, even though was a general fund allocation a few years ago, it's in order to have a picture of what state government is spending on IT, it seems like an important part of it. It was what, $70 million or something, right?
Yeah, so part, if you don't mind, answer.
Yep.
Because those were set up as one-time appropriations and
Yep.
not part of our base budget,
Uh-huh.
we do represent that a little bit differently. And earlier on the slide deck, I did provide a breakout of slide five, where we are on the IT modernization fund, so that
Yeah,
you can see that.
right.
When all was said and done, we had $77 million that was appropriated
Yeah.
for projects, and currently the remaining amount, and this is as of the end of December, there was $27.4 million.
Yeah.
And they are dedicated to very specific projects, and you can see the activity.
Yeah, I recall that. I guess commenting that it would be useful to have that somehow, well, it's shown here, but somehow included in the big picture, I guess is what I'm
Okay.
suggesting. But the other question I have is around the demand services. It sounded like in your response to another question that some of the money that shows up in demand, what's going to be demand services, is I guess what I want to ask is how are those expenses distinguished from the kinds of expenses that will now show up in individual agency and department budgets? So some of it sounded like was for particular projects, for example. So can you give me a little more idea of what distinguishes the costs that will show up in demand services as opposed to the bespoke costs that are now showing up in agency and department services?
So can you go back to slide 8? So What you will see for project costs in the ADS budget, in the ledger for ADS will be any type of licensing that's necessary for a project, so.
But why doesn't
case
that-
management Licensing,
And why doesn't that show up in the project cost?
it still shows up in the project cost, it just shows up through our ledger in the project cost, not in the agencies.
And why is that?
The reason for that is because they are enterprise-wide products, so we are able
Oh.
to buy it at bulk rates
I see.
for the entire state and get better
Okay.
pricing that way. So we will bear the cost of those products in our ledger and then seek recovery from the agencies or departments for those specific licensing. So let's say for the case management systems across the state, the tool that we use, we buy all the licensing that we
Yeah.
believe we need.
Okay.
legally. Then we bill back HS only for what they're using. for
Right.
Licensing and ARP only what they're using. So ultimately, the project reporting can show that in their costs, but we can also show that portion of the project costs in our ledger.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I fully got that.
Well, I guess what I'm about to say is kind of to your point. Kind of to everybody's, there's a lot of unknowns. And it seems as if it isn't completely flushed out, which is fine. Because anytime we have change or anything is, made to ideally make better, there are going to be unknowns. Given that, do we have a mechanism to assess and then say, is this working? Isn't this working? Do we need to change? To the representative, chair's, point, just in one instance, you have two sets of decision makers where you're going to have to, it may not be aligned. And so what do you do then? So my suggestion is and I'm all for change if it's for better, but to make sure that we have a mechanism to assess if it is. In essence, an after action would be what we did right, what we did wrong, and how we can make it better.
Good point, Senator Major.
Thank you.
Right, but I feel like I'm understanding that this change to how the budget's being presented was not necessarily your idea. You don't have to answer that if you don't want. I just, to Senator Major's point, if it sounds like we should be talking to Commissioner Gresham and ask him about his idea. Okay, how will the ECMO dashboard change? Will you guys be able to, you've been updating it every week? I know we were all very excited about that. So how will the annual report, I assume, will be less impacted just because I imagine that's a big deal project that there's lead time on, right? Like, we're gonna need this, we're gonna need that, we're gonna need this and that. The ECMO dashboard was, you guys put a lot of time into updating that last year at our, working in collaboration with us so that you could update it every week. How's that gonna work? Or will it be okay?
Planning to provide those updates. There's a couple of data points based on what we're talking about here that I have asked my team to start tracking on, which is contract ownership, funding, where the funding is coming from and who is the funding owner, so that if we do add those as trial data points on the dashboard, it will provide the committees with visibility into where that originating funding source could be. We're working through the volume of reporting, and keep in mind, we don't have the investment in internal systems. I think I've said this before, when Workday goes live, I would fully expect that we would have a way to have immediate access to this type of data. We just aren't in that system today. And so that is a little bit of a challenge with with the reporting on the projects, it is, I think those extra data points are gonna be important, and I just, my hope is that we're not looking at thousands and thousands of spreadsheets for manual reconciliation, because that could pose some delays in the reporting. So we're tracking that as a potential risk that Commissioner Brush and I anticipate would have some fixes for.
That's good. Yeah, just trying to make sure I'm following along here and having some challenges, but will this new appropriating concept, is that the best way to describe this? Okay, will it have any impact on things that you are working on, that we have been concerned about and hoping to see, ongoing work on, like cyber, like, any security issues, privacy issues? Will this impact your ability to have, responsibility for that across the entire enterprise?
That is built into core enterprise services. So if House Appropriations moves forward with what we agreed to here, that would be covered under core enterprise services. So there should be no impact to that.
Okay.
Cool, but security is built into foundational services. And the resources, the team, the tool sets that they use, how they deliver those services across the enterprise, and all the security work there. If there is additive to that, which today we don't have additive, there are project-based costs, which would be vulnerability testing before go live, or if there were any kind of security work that would have to be done on a particular project, that would be in addition to what core enterprise services is showing. But our security team is fully covered under CES.
And are employees moving in the scheme, or are they staying where they are? So are all ADS people staying at ADS, or are they moving to the units? Are the units picking up more staff?
Staying with ADS. So I think we talked about the portfolios before. They are aligning under portfolios, but staying put. I know, it adds a layer of confusion, but we never changed the organizational structure when ADS was created, back from when it was pre-ADS. And so now we did.
Can you say that again? You never changed the organizational structure from before it was ADS?
Correct. So less.
Is that true, Joe? Is that true? Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand that, because I mean, there was pretty significant difference in the relationship between ADS and the departments that happened as a result of ADS. It is my understanding, like, especially with employees.
So when ADS was established, we assumed all the IT roles across the executive branch. But those structures were kind of a lift and shift in some ways.
What structure?
So the team that supported A&R, the
Yep.
team that supported Fish and Wildlife,
Yep.
Public Works, they stayed there. They came under the ADS umbrella.
But they stayed.
But they still supported the same user.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed until now. Now we rolled out the portfolio vision, and we're looking at how we can align services better outside of the individual agency structures and really around the needs of our customers.
Okay, now I have light bulbs going off. So now you are talking about you actually are talking about moving people.
We've just shifted the leadership team.
Yeah.
To create the leadership structure. The system administrators and the developers are still supporting exclusively those departments. And so this puts a little bit of burden on our IT managers and deputy directors, because now they have to take up the work of the rest of the 50% of state government. That was the analysis that we had done, is that moving into into maturing the agency, less than 50% of the departments actually had dedicated field staff.
So how many staff does ADS have today?
398,
How many?
398.
Those are all filled?
89, I'm sorry, 89. No, we have a 4% vacancy right now.
So you're allocated 389, you have a 4% vacancy rate. In this scheme, what is your staffing?
We have 180 in the demand and the rest in CES.
What is the rest? Is it the same amount of as staff as you have now?
Yes, yeah, we don't have any.
So it's 389 with an expected 4%. Okay.
But if we saw that folks, let's say those same folks supporting Agency of Natural Resources were doing things that are outlined in core enterprise services, desktop support, help desk, there's no reason why they should sit in the Agency of Natural Resources support team. They should be coming up to supporting everybody in state government.
So are we looking for ways to find efficiency and potentially,
Standards.
that'd be great. Less positions, maybe? Is there a lot of duplicativeness across these
when we
positions?
start digging deep into the measures for each one of those services, performance, quality, and capacity, I think that's where we'll start seeing whether or not we have more people than necessary in supporting particular service sets. We are going through that analysis right now.
So is one of the problems that's trying to be resolved here, right sizing the agency staffing with the work that needs to be done?
Trying to
I don't know if right sizing is the right phrase for that. I would say that we're trying to do a better job to define and clarify the services that are being provided and necessary to support the executive branch with the resources we have.
That sounds like right sizing to me with the resources that we have, but.
But also it drives to the consistency and the standards, because if we have 25 different teams
Sure.
across a very small subset, we have 25 different ways of doing things. And creating those foundations under core means that everybody's doing something the same. So if that one service that has a security incident or security issue, if we find that they weren't following standards, we now have to, this is what core enterprise services comes in as an overlay to say, you need to do that. So it's a level of oversight for us and governance management for us. But it's also doing things consistently so that every user in state government can expect their things to work properly. And we don't have a situation of the haves and have-nots, which is what we're moving away from.
We gotta make room for some other folks. Go ahead and then.
Okay, I mean, just respectfully, I'm thinking about this in terms of things like the, CWIS system. Your last comment.
The technical debt areas are a byproduct of siloed thinking in many cases. The model that we're moving into creates an ecosystem that creates an environment where it forces the consistency and it forces us to look beyond just the individual things. So CWIS is a replacement to SSMIS. That is an environment and a system that has grown over the course of multiple decades to be something that it was never designed to be. But if now you're looking at a collective ecosystem, we may have systems that are already doing what needs to get done. So we can now repeat that consumption of service in the field like we're doing in core.
Brooke Kleppner?
Does this reorg involve people physically moving from sitting in the A&R offices to sitting in the ADS offices?
We don't really have offices. No, we work across all of the couple hundred state locations that are out there. We're flexible. But there is an expectation that I want my team to show up the way that our partners in state government need them to show up. And if that's every day in person, then that ends up being how it's aligned to the role. And if it is, and we do have teams that do operate that way. And as we go through this change too, it creates greater visibility around what those needs are with each one of the offices and departments.
So I feel like we've dragged you pretty far from your slide deck. So did you want to revert to your slides? We have a hearing up in our room at 3. I just wanted to make sure that we give you time to finish your presentation, but I don't want to cut off question.
I think for funding asks, the biggest change that you'll see in what we're doing is you'll see double the number of funds. So we only had 4 funds that we would show in our dashboard in prior years. You now see 8. For enterprise services is critical for us to move forward, because what it also does is, regardless of whether or not people have funds to pay for their extra stuff and their projects, for enterprise services is the foundations that become measured. And if at any point in time through innovation, change, and transformation, we decide that one of those 13 categories isn't necessary anymore, that gives us the opportunity to downscale as needed. But it also gives us an opportunity for oversight around the volume and demand that happens throughout state government that we don't have the ability to report on today in a transaction-based model, because we seem to always be trying to just catch up as opposed to truly managing and operating IT services. The demand area is one that we will be scrutinizing greatly over the next year. We're already starting to do that. Primarily for us, it's in the field services space, is what are we doing and why are we doing it? What are the different systems out there? Are we meeting standard requirements? Do we have enough resources? And also be able to shift resources within a portfolio now, instead of waiting for A&R, or I feel bad that I'm picking on A&R, but 3-letter acronym agency to say, we want that work done, or we need work done. And that's a deficit spend model today, because there is no matching recovery to the true expense of people's timesheet with a rate that's never changed. So that's not reflected in this year's budget. It will be reflected next year. So you will see change next year coming there. And I do hear you in the bespoke piece, is that I either expect that we're going to have a lot of, what is that?
Excess receipts.
Excess receipts requests. So when it has to go through our business office, we're gonna potentially see the expenditure and the recovery in the bespoke to be vastly different than $5 million. And I think I've said this before in institutions last week, and I definitely said this before, is we cannot decouple those 3 activities from each other. And so this puts a lot of onus on us to make sure that we don't do that. But budget, expenditure, and recovery must all be the same conversation when we're talking about an internal service agency. And so those are really our asks.
I had a quick question. So there's a number here that is associated with general fund. Was it?
9 million?
Yeah, 9 million. That was it. Remind me what we've done with general fund before.
We've never had general fund.
Never had general fund. That's good.
I'm sorry, we have had small sliver of general fund support the BCGI. But we're talking $200,000.
Okay, so what's in general fund now?
So if you go, yeah, it funds core enterprise services. John, can you flip to slide 10?
And as you're going to slide 10, what general fund does, it's about a quarter of the total cost of CES, and it reduces the allocation costs to the agencies. So it reduces their per user rate that they have to pay into CES.
Okay, and it supports sort of the central office of ADS in effect, is that?
It supports 5 different categories. One is split, so network access is split, so some of it is.
All of this on this slide is the $9 million?
No, the Data and Governance Administration.
Oh, I see. What's general fund? Yes, was labeled as general fund. Yeah.
We did include Echo Essentials in there as well. So Stacy Gibson Granville came in and talked about intake and the business architects and working at the front end of asks, which is also something that we're looking at as more and more on the reporting, how we report better on that. And then the IT procurement, which is our business office and administrative staff. So that's what general fund is covering. Everything else is under an allocation cost that is distributed per active domain user. Basically, if you're a live person that logs on, that is counted towards your numbers as an agency or department.
Okay. And so that's all the base software or services that everybody uses.
Correct.
Okay. I suppose I'll understand this eventually, but it's pretty confusing.
We've got a couple weeks, I think.
You can do it.
TikTok, yeah.
Yeah.
We do trainings.
I think I have a couple
The
easy
whole
questions,
thing
yeah.
is that this does create greater transparency and for our partners in state government, greater predictability. That was the whole foundation behind this. And interestingly enough, we've been talking about it enough and having other departments and oversight organizations review it, as well as our peers across other states, that now we have some meetings with other states looking to see how they could adopt a model like this, because it does create better predictability and it forces us to be accountable and measure the work that we're doing.
Thank you.
Senator Harrison.
Thanks. So, 2 questions. So one is the core enterprise services. So those are 49,000 or 49 million, right? And then that's what's on slide 10. So would that spreadsheet that we were just looking at that doesn't have numbers on it, would that be would the total of all those be the 49 million? Okay, and then in our committee, we didn't get, or at least we haven't looked at 10 and 11, slides 10 and 11, which are just, they're not the whole budget, I don't think, but maybe, so if I think it would be good to spend some time on those.
So the crosswalk,
This is on you.
so small.
I know I made it.
So these are the gyrations of the budget for us to get to the bottom. It shows how the general fund is hitting these various account categories within our budget, whether it be wages, whether it be contractual services. You can see all the line items that are in there. The breakdown between operating and personal services. The special funds represent those, the MRP and the BCGI fund. And then the internal service fund are all of those other ISFs that we called out, whether it be the CIT and the vision fund, which falls within core enterprise services, or the 3 new funds that represent SLA, touch, and bespoke. That falls into the internal service fund column that you see there. I can walk through these if I can read them line by line, if that would be helpful, but no.
Well, is this supposed to add up to $96 million?
It does. If you go to the next slide, John,
It rolls up at the bottom as.
so it crosses over to, and actually it's not It's not in there. So, it got cut off. So the 2 pages do add up to 96.5. Yeah. So if you take the on this, this is 11. If you take the green line that you see there, the 49.2 million.
Yeah.
And the second page, thank you, the 47.3 million.
Okay.
Is the 96.
And what are the other, I'm sorry, I'm just blurting out here, but what are the other rows here for FY 27 governor recommend target and then target versus recommend? Can you explain those?
So those are, if you looked at last year's budget, last year's crosswalk, and you added 3% across.
Okay, so it's based on last year's budget model, and it's a different model.
With a 3% growth.
Yeah.
Not making any other changes, just applying 3%. That would get you to the $141 million in totality. I'm sorry. Well, on deck 11.
Yeah, well, and it's 0 on the next page, so.
Which is 0 on the next page,
Yeah.
right? Because we now have 2 appropriations instead of 1 appropriation. Last year we had 1 appropriation. Now it's split across the appropriation.
Okay.
This is not very helpful for the conversation. I'm sorry, because there are so many changes that have happened from last year to this year, just the structural.
And sorry if you mentioned this earlier, but is there some easy way for us to see, we've gone from 140 to 98, the 42 million has now moved into individual agency budgets. Is there any way for us to see that so we can compare last year's total with this year's total?
I don't have an ability to show you that. It's something that we can request in finance and management. So one thing I would like to point out is that the understanding from ADS's perspective is that every year, this was reflected in the agency's budget, ask as well as our budget ask. We would put forward and ask for X amount of spending across the enterprise, which included project costs. And those agencies, when they had these projects originating from, were also asking for the same amount of money.
So that was a duplicated appropriation.
It was a duplication of spending, correct?
Right.
Yes.
It's been pulled out later, but.
Correct,
Yeah.
yes. So what this does is it takes out the spending authority from AES, but it leaves the spending authority in the agencies and departments' budgets. So it should be there. I don't have the ability to show that because I cannot see into other agencies' budgets.
Do you have a sense for how many different agency budgets that have that IT allocation in?
I would say all of them do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have one that does not.
One thing that would be helpful for me, as I think about our committee trying to write a letter, would be I hate to ask you to do more work, but it would be really great to have like a 1-page, just a narrative, that just says, because as we've also done our work with House Appropriations, I know there were a lot of changes this year to how agencies were being asked to present their budget information to committees, and the questions that, we were asked to ask. So it'd be helpful if you could help us with just a, 1 or 2 page written document that says, here's how our budget is being presented differently this year.
Chair, if I made the appropriations committee is going to be presented with your budget, and then all the agencies are going to come in with a new IT budget that they didn't have last year. So I think, we have a 1-year transition problem because in 28 and 29, we'll be able to compare the 28 agency budget agency budget, and 28 ADS budget. But this year, they're having to compare across two different systems. So I think collectively, it would be helpful to our friends in appropriations and to ourselves if we were to figure out some way to sum up the piece that is now put out and then scattered among the agencies.
Okay.
So on this sheet, just I think I'm reading that there is a, 16 million reduction in personnel, classified employees?
1.6.
Vacancy savings?
No, I mean, I'm looking across at the 5,000, or I'm sorry, 500,000 and 500,010 line item first, right underneath personnel services. I might be reading this incorrectly. That's really my question. So it looks like there's $16 million less being spent there. But
Oh, I see.
again,
Oh, yeah.
So part of this is, I need to look into that, I'm sorry.
It looks like the negative 20 million, that's the offset, that's
Right.
internal service.
Right.
I think it's the way the accounting is happening.
Yes, it is hitting the internal service fund of 20 million. I need to look at that number. Apologies, good catch.
This is not, so I know that the budget numbers are in the adaptive system. This is just an output spreadsheet that everybody has, so that's where.
We're not reducing salaries by 20 million. We are.
Is that the number that's moved over to appropriation number 2 that has under classified employees and exempt employees is about 18 million?
Sorry.
So if you're looking at page 11, you see the negative 16 million in classified employees and exempt employees. Then if you look at page 12, you see it's positive 18 million.
is that?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, that's exactly what it is. So from last year, again, last year. That's not right.
Yes.
So we moved from one appropriation to support the entire agency and record our expenditures to 2 appropriations. We have staffing costs that reside now in 2 appropriations. So in order to show that change from the prior appropriation to the new appropriation that this will live in, that's a show of that movement. So we have staffing that supports core enterprise services. And we have staffing that supports demand needs.
And keep in mind that under one appropriation, we saw the recovery of that in SLA, in timesheet billing, and in allocation. Now we're seeing them, now we're saying, no, as field services, you don't get to pick your recovery model. You're only getting one. And so that's shifting those staff that are truly field services under field services, or are truly core enterprise services and available for support of the entire state government, then that's where you're seeing that distinction, because now they look at 2 separate appropriations. Thank you for clarifying, because
Yeah, I was
I
starting to.
need repeat lessons on this.
Imagine how we feel.
I'm going to do.
Although it does look like it's $5 million less. If you take the negative on page 11 for all personnel services, $37 million negative, and then plus $32 million on page 12 for personnel services. And that's because, why?
So we are looking at potential reductions under core enterprise services as a whole. And we are looking to do that through potential retirements that we expect to happen this year. So we're not looking to cut any positions, but we believe that there will be positions that become vacant, and we will find savings to those vacancies.
But you're not cutting positions, but you're counting vacancies.
Leaving them filled.
Correct.
Does the work, other people will pick up the work or the work?
No, the work is becoming more streamlined. So we're not doubling the work, we're not doing the work different, we're not repeating the work. We're doing more proactive work as opposed to reactive work. And our vacancy right now is the lowest it's ever been. I said 4%, we're going between 3% and 4%. And we've traditionally held about an 8 to 12% vacancy. And so that is, it should be reflected as vacancy savings, but.
Where the sheet works out.
We need to give our committee time to get up to our room for 3:00 hearing. So I think I see our next steps. It'd be great if you guys could get us just something simple in writing, just a one-pager that says, here are the differences. Here's how our budget has changed from last year to this. I think we'll probably want to hear from Commissioner Gresham about why these changes are being requested from DFM. And then maybe we'll hear from our own fiscal experts at JFO. So I feel like I have a plan. Thank you for joining us on our journey.
Thank you for doing this together. I think
And we are adjourning with you.
Are you adjourning with us?
We are.
Okay, it's an adjournment journey.